Healing After Heartbreak, Special Episode 1, the story I was finally ready to tell. Some heartbreaks change our lives. Some heartbreaks change who we believe we are. Around here, we're healing both. Welcome back to Healing After Heartbreak. I'm Mary Majors. And today's episode feels a little different. I've actually recorded this opening more than once because it feels a little like handing someone my journal. And maybe that's exactly what I'm doing. This week, something happened that still doesn't feel entirely real. My first book, The Sacred Work of Remembering, was released into the world. Since then, people have asked me how long it took to write, why I wrote it, and what it felt like to finally hold it in my hands. Those are wonderful questions. But today, I don't really want to talk about publishing. I want to tell you about becoming. So, can I tell you a story? Because this book didn't begin when I sat down to write it. It began years before that. It began in journals I never imagined anyone else would read, in voice memos recorded after difficult days, in notes scribbled in the margins of books, in prayers whispered when I didn't have better words, in therapy sessions, on long walks, and in those quiet moments when something finally made sense. For years, I wasn't writing a book. I was just trying to survive. I just didn't know survival was quietly becoming a story. One afternoon, about 6 months ago, I spread everything across my dining room table. At first, it just looked like chaos. Yellow legal pads, dog-eared notebooks, sticky notes, voice memos, margins filled with thoughts I'd completely forgotten I'd written. And somewhere in the middle of all those scattered pieces, something shifted. I realized I wasn't looking at fragments anymore. I was looking at my life, spread out in front of me. All those years suddenly belonged to the same story. Not a perfect life, not an easy life, but a life that finally made sense. Looking back, it almost feels like the book had been writing itself for years. Not because writing was easy, it wasn't, but because those words had been patiently waiting for me to become ready. In hindsight, I think they were writing me too. People have asked me, why now? I don't think I could have written this book any sooner. Some stories can only be told once you've lived far enough beyond them to hold them with compassion instead of only pain. A&D writing this book wasn't about reopening old wounds. It was about finally seeing those wounds for what they were and honoring what they had to teach me. It was about saying, this is my story. It isn't perfect, it isn't pretty, it isn't the story I would have chosen for myself, but it's the one I've been given. And maybe, just maybe, someone else will find pieces of themselves inside it. I'll also be honest. Writing this book asked more of me than I expected. It required a kind of humility I wasn't prepared for. Because there's moments when you realize people are going to know things about you, things you spent years quietly carrying. I knew some people would misunderstand parts of my story, but I decided to tell it anyway. Because courage isn't waiting until you're no longer afraid. Courage is deciding that honesty is more important than hiding. People often ask me what the title means. The Sacred Work of Remembering. When I first chose that title, I'm not sure I completely understood it myself. Today, I think remembering means something different. It doesn't mean living in the past. It doesn't mean becoming the person I was before life hurt. It means coming home. Coming home to my own voice, to my own body, to truth, to a life that no longer has to be built around survival. That's what remembering has become for me. And that's my hope for every woman who opens this book. My hope is that somewhere inside these pages, she remembers the woman she's always been beneath the fear, beneath the expectations, beneath everything she learned, she had to be just to survive. Because that's where healing begins. Maybe today wasn't really about my story. Maybe it was about giving you permission to become curious about your own. Because every life has chapters. Every heart carries stories. Every wound leaves questions. And healing often begins the moment we're willing to look at all of it with honesty and compassion. When I finished writing The Sacred Work of Remembering, I honestly thought I had reached the end of the story. What I didn't realize was that the story wasn't finished with me. Writing the last page changed something. Not because I finally had all the answers, but because I finally understood the question I'd been asking all along. And next week, I want to tell you about that. I want to share what remembering taught me and how writing this book changed me in ways I never expected. If you've already picked up the book, thank you. It means more than I could ever put into words. I hope somewhere inside those pages, you discover pieces of yourself too. And if you haven't read it yet, that's okay. I believe stories find us when we're ready for them. Whenever that time comes, I'd be honored to share my story with you. Whether you ever read this book or not, more than anything, I hope today reminded you that your story matters too. Not because it's perfect, and not because every chapter has a happy ending, but because it's yours. And maybe the parts you've wanted to hide are the very places where healing has been quietly waiting for you. Thank you for letting me share a few pages from my journal with you. I hope somewhere inside them you caught a glimpse of your own story too. If these conversations have been meaningful to you, the podcast and the book were always meant to go together. The podcast gives us space to explore these ideas. The book gives you a place to return to them in your own time. If you'd like to continue the journey, The Sacred Work of Remembering is available on Amazon in Kindle and paperback. I'd love for it to find you whenever you're ready, because healing isn't about becoming someone new. It's about remembering who you were before pain convinced you to forget. Until next time, keep remembering. Much love. See you next time.